Wild Eye is a programme of nature-based and art-based activities and events that's going to be happening in and around Scarborough for the next 18 months, really to try and celebrate the amazing wildlife and nature that we have here on our doorstep. So we're going to be doing a whole series of different activities. We're going to have artworks being installed in around the town, 3 different locations, one in Scarborough Harbour, another sea watching station on Marine Drive, and then also a series of sculptures on the Cinder Track. We're going to be doing lots of nature-based events such as sea watching and seaweed searches and things like that. We're also working with a professional seafood chef, Rob Green, who's doing lots of events around sustainable seafood, and a lot of those will be based here on this ship. So lots to take part in. I've got leaflets if anybody wants to take one home with you and look up our website when you get back, and you'll be able to see what different things we've got coming up. But one of the people we've been working with who's been absolutely brilliant on this project so far is the wonderful Stuart Baines. So Stuart is he'll tell you more about this, but he is a volunteer with Sea-Watch, and he's also the editor of the Scarborough Porpoise Facebook page, which many of you may be familiar with if you're local. So he has been incredibly generous with his time and his knowledge on this project so far. So we're really grateful to you for that, Stuart. This evening he is giving a talk on Bottlenose Dolphins, East Coast expansion to Scarborough and Yorkshire. So I'll hand over to you, Stuart.
Yep. Can we just turn the lights down? Is that possible?
Turn them off.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. Right, so as Caroline says, my name is Stuart Baines, for those who don't know me, and quite a few people do, I think, in the audience. I'm going to tell you a little bit tonight about one of the most charismatic, what we call cetaceans we get off Yorkshire, which is Bottlenose Dolphins. So I'm going to tell you a little bit, first of all, a little bit about myself and what I've been involved in as far as conservation and recording is concerned. Then we're going to look at information about bottlenose dolphins, a few of their characteristics, and they are the most fascinating animals. And then we're going to look at the expansion which has been so significant over the last few years down the east coast of Britain. And then we're going to look at a few other species as well. So we'll just start off, as I say, by just a little bit about what I've been doing. So, Stuart Baines, obviously, and as Caroline says, I'm with the Sea-Watch Foundation, which is a national charity which records sightings of cetaceans. That cetaceans means dolphins, porpoise and whales. During the evening, I might often use the word cetaceans, just saves me having to say dolphins, porpoise and whales every time I want to describe that. So we record and look to conserve the cetaceans around the UK. I'm very much a citizen scientist. I'm not after a PhD in marine biology or anything like that. I've been a lifetime wildlife enthusiast, and in the last 13 or 14 years have taken a great interest in the cetaceans that we get off Yorkshire coast, and it's proved to be a fascinating hobby and pastime, and it's my joy to be able to spread the community near and far about the animals we get here. Also, as Caroline mentioned, if you're on Facebook, I run a Facebook page called Scarborough Porpoise. I'll tell a little bit more about that in a moment. So, Sea-Watch Foundation, as I say, it's a charity which looks to conserve whales, dolphins and porpoises in British and Irish waters. We do that by collating data. We've been doing that for sort of 50 years. Taking in data on the movements of these animals and the numbers, and then we can advise governments and other NGOs about how best to protect them. We involve in public scientific monitoring. That's by encouraging people like you. If you've seen a dolphin or porpoise, you can contact Sea-Watch Foundation through their website or me through the Facebook page. And if you do, that's great. Any information we get on what you've seen, or if you're not quite sure what you've seen, if it's something with a fin, then let us know, even if you're not sure whether it's a dolphin or a porpoise. It's all useful information, and certainly it all goes into the 40-year database that we've got at Sea-Watch. So we raise awareness and understanding of marine mammals generally. That's what we're all about, and educate and advise public and international bodies. So I'm also involved in one or two local partnerships wildlife-wise. So along mostly with the Yorkshire Wildlife Trust in one way or another. So there's a North Sea Cetacean Recording Group, snappy little title that one. But it basically, it's we've been training surveyors for the last 5 years or so to do land and boat surveys. And again, it's all about building up statistics and information on where these animals are and how many are out there, so we can better conserve them. And I've been involved with Caroline in the Wild Eye project, and we've been doing various sea watches and education classes, and we'll be having more sea watches in the next 18 months or so. We'll publicise the dates via Yorkshire Wildlife Trust media and the Scarborough Porpoise Facebook page, so you can get involved if you want to. And I say, social media, so the Scarborough Porpoise is a Facebook page I set up about 10 years ago, thinking that a few people might be interested in that, and it's really blossomed. To my surprise, we now have about 78,000 followers, and so it's created an enormous amount of awareness of the fact these animals are out there and easy to see off Yorkshire. So now we're going to move on to talk about Bottlenose Dolphin, which is what the evening is particularly in respect of. Give you a few details. So people are surprised at how big these animals are. So a Bottlenose Dolphin is an adult one that you get around Britain. It's 4 metres long or 12 foot. So it's a big animal. It's sort of this size in a boat. Big animals and weigh about half a tonne in weight. Huge weight. Have to eat a lot of fish to keep themselves going. They have bottlenose dolphins, as you know, a typical flipper dolphin with the bottle-shaped beak, and it has a tall, sickle-shaped dorsal fin and dark grey upper parts and white on the belly. Like most cetaceans, they are this colour. They're dark grey on top and light underneath. The reason that they're light underneath is that if you're a fish in the sea, the surface of the sea looks silver or white. So if you're a predator hunting fish, you have a white belly, so the fish hopefully can't see you as easily. So most whales, dolphins and porpoise are generally of that description. So are they a benefit of Yorkshire? They certainly are. I've been studying, as I say, cetaceans for like 13, 14 years, using mainly porpoise, which is great little animals. I love porpoise. I'll tell you a bit about those at the end. Harbour porpoise are smaller cousins of dolphins, less animated, but when these guys came along, it made all the difference as far as people been interested and letting them know what was out there. Because they do this sort of thing, far more animated and exciting and interesting for people, really. So, do they come into the bay? They do come into the bays, but if people say to me, we're coming to Scarborough for the day, where's the best place to see the bottlenose dolphins? I say, not on the beach. Anywhere but the beach. Because they tend to swim past the headlands, so they'll come past the headlands further north, and they'll ping off the marine drive, which is the road that runs around under the castle cliffs here, and they'll go across the bay to sort of Caton Bay and down the cliffs. They don't as often go into the bays themselves. So I said the last thing you want to do is be on the beach with your ice cream. If you want to see dolphins, you need to be on the road, on the marine drive, looking out if you want to see them. So, are we just watching them? No, they're watching us as well. Certainly, we were lucky enough to be out this last Sunday with the Scarborough Field Naturalists on a boat. We did a trip out for 3 hours. We got just out of the harbour. We came across bottlenose dolphins, which fortunately stayed with us for about an hour and a half. Wow. And they tend to, I'm sure that they pick up the vibes. Well, it's small. That's a very small wooden boat. People are very excited. I'm sure the dolphins pick up the vibrations, and they're very inquisitive animals. So they'll come to the boat and check you out, and then they'll swim off and then come back again. But we had about an hour and a half, 2 hours of bottlenose dolphins around the boat. We were just gradually moving along. I'll tell you a little bit about how you can safely observe them later. And these animals are around us all the while. So why do dolphins jump? Well, nobody really knows, but a lot of it is just play. I'll tell you a little while about their intelligence. They're very intelligent animals. and they're one of the few animals that even when they're adult, they play. Most animals, when they get they might when they're little, like fox cubs or whatever, they play, but when they get older, it's all about food. These guys have sufficient time and intelligence to also behave in that way all their lives. Another weird thing about cetaceans is that, effectively, they never sleep, or they never sleep like we sleep. So cetaceans, because they have to be aware of what's around them, they have to be aware where the rocks and boats and things are, they need to always have at least partially conscious. And they also need to come up and breathe at the appropriate time. Because you're aware that like the mammals like we breathe oxygen through the blowhole. So if they swam along unconscious and opened their blowhole underwater, they just drown. Same as we would do. They've got to all the time be aware. So what they do, with a clever trick, they sleep with half the brain at a time. So the left-hand side of the brain goes to sleep, the right eye shuts, and then they swap over. So they often see them just quite slowly moving along. Sometimes when they're doing that, they're effectively sleeping, but only with half the consciousness at the time. So over the lifespan, which is 40 to 60 years, they never actually sleep like we do. They're never unconscious. As I say, the same applies to whales and porpoise. Any mammal that swims in the sea can't afford to be unconscious at any one time. How fast can they swim? Well, they're pretty damn fast when they want to be. So normal swim is 4 to 7 miles an hour, but they can do bursts of up to 20 or more miles an hour. 4 to 7 is normal speed, and usually, or quite often, that makes them quite predictable. So if there's bottlenose dolphins at Whitby coming south, the dolphin watchers know that probably take them 4 to 5 hours to get to Scarborough from Whitby. But dolphins being dolphins, they're also unpredictable as well, in as much as there was 17 went past the Moon Drive this morning going south. So I expected that they would get picked up off Bempton in about 5 hours thereafter, 4 or 5 hours thereafter, returned up there 7 hours later. So they had presumably found some fish in Filey Bay or another bay and stayed there for a couple of hours and then started to move on again. So anyone who had worked out, well, that's so far, I'll go on to Bempton for like 12 o'clock. They had about 3 hours to wait for them because they didn't turn up until much later. So people often say, how big is a dolphin group or pod? It's any size. So what you tend to get is if you get a large group, and we've had 1-2 large groups recently of maybe 40 or so individuals, that's made up of lots of family groups. So little family groups are 4 or 5 strong in a group, and sometimes they're all grouped together and go move in one large, we could call it a super pod, a large group anyway. But then at some point they'll fracture up and go their separate ways, and then they'll later come back and meet up again, or not. So they're unpredictable from that point of view. And then reproduction, they breed, females get to breed age about 5 years into their life, males about 9 years. Mating time is late summer, and late summer is also the time when you see them with the calves. So 12 months gestation. So they're not predictable. Sometimes they'll have a calf 2 years after, or a year after they've had one. Other times it can be several years. And but they reproduce every 2 to 6 years. So again, it's not. There's no certainty to it as to how often they do breed and reproduce. Inshore and offshore bottlenose dolphins. Our dolphins we see on Scarborough and the Yorkshire coast are inshore bottlenose dolphins. Sea Watch are aware that there are, in the East Coast population, there's circa 250 bottlenose dolphins that range anywhere between the Humber and Inverness, North East Scotland. But we think that's about 40% of the bottlenose population around Britain. 70% spend all the time further out and don't come into land. We thought initially that they were all inshore dolphins, but then we started recently to get groups up in the Cromarty Firth, north east Scotland. There was a group of dolphins went in there, 100 or so bottlenose dolphins a couple of years ago. The local dolphin recorders went to have a look at them, and you can tell a lot of individual dolphins by marks on their dorsal fins, and they didn't recognise any of the dolphins there. So they were not the usual inshore dolphins, they were offshore dolphins that had come in. And the same thing happened out in Norfolk about a month ago. A group of bottlenose dolphins turned up, and they were looking at the fins. None of them were locals, they were, again, an offshore population that had come in. Size-wise, our dolphins that we get around Britain are the biggest in the world. You get bottlenose dolphins in anywhere other than the polar regions, so Britain's farthest north, and then lots in the Mediterranean and the Caribbean, and over in the Pacific, etc. But the warmer the water, the smaller the bottlenose dolphins are, and the colder the bigger they are. So ours are the bigger because our waters are cold around Britain. They've evolved to have more blubber on them to keep them warm. Whereas if you see the ones there was some on Blue Planet 2, I think it was, riding the surf of South Africa, and I could tell they were far smaller than the ones we get because the water's that much warmer there. So we get a mixture now of young and old dolphins moving around the Yorkshire coast. Bottlenose dolphins are very pale grey when they're first born, and then as they get older they get dark grey. So the adults are almost matte black or steel grey, young ones are very pale grey. Another giveaway for young dolphin calves is that these lines here, so vaguely on that one but more distinctly on this one. The reason they have those marks on them is because when they are within their mother, unborn, they're folded over in a U shape. So when they're born, they straighten out, and they have creases in them for several months or longer. And eventually, as the skin gets darker grey, and those marks fade. So I've already answered that question really. How long do bottlenose dolphins live? They live a long time. They live up to 60 years. We have one that was off the marine drive this morning, which I'll tell you about in a little while, a particular dolphin who's very easily recognised. She is 45 years plus. We know that because a photographic catalogue of bottlenose dolphin dorsal fins has been kept by 2 universities in Scotland, Aberdeen and St Andrews University, for the last 40 years, and they've been tracking these dolphins and keeping records of where they are, which I'll tell you a little about in the future. A few more slides. So they know how old a lot of the dolphins are. Not all of them have recognisable fins, but they're very boisterous animals, and they get scratches and nibbles on their fins, and you can regularly photograph. I photograph them a lot and send my photographs up to these 2 universities who will come back to you and say, that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so. So if you live in Scarborough and you walk around the Marine Drive, you'll regularly see cetaceans. You'll see harbour porpoise, that used to be by far our commonest, but now bottlenose dolphins as well. If you're just seeing one at a time, you haven't seen them before, it's quite hard to tell the difference. But basically, harbour porpoise are much smaller, 1.5 metres to 2 metres long, they're half the size of bottlenose dolphin. They have a small triangular fin as opposed to a swept back fin. And bottlenose dolphins will regularly do this, they'll put their head out of the water or they'll jump. Porpoise don't. Porpoise, on the whole, just surface and breathe like these are doing. This will be a mother and calf, harbour porpoise. They don't tend to jump out unless, apart from mating season, which is in October and November, they get a bit frisky. Sometimes jump out the water then. But if you see anything jump out the water, it's far more likely to be a dolphin than it is a porpoise. How intelligent are bottlenose dolphins? Extremely intelligent. extremely intelligent. The scientists think that as far as intelligence is concerned, it's human beings ourselves at the top of the pile, bottlenose dolphins specifically the next level down, and then chimps and great ape below that. So specifically, bottlenose dolphins are far more intelligent than a lot of other animals. They've done some fascinating experiments with them to identify how intelligent they are, and two I'll tell you about. One, and which I don't agree with, keeping any dolphins or other animals in captivity, but some were in a pool, and the people who attendants were decided it was a good idea to reward the dolphins if they brought any rubbish off from the bottom of the pool, bits of paper, cardboard, this sort of thing, which they did. And then they realised that one of the bottlenose dolphins had stuffed a large piece of paper under a rock at the bottom of the pool, was tearing off a little bits at a time. So he was getting more food. He realised that if I just take up this one bit of paper, I'm going to get one bit of fish. If I tear off bits at a time, I'm going to get loads of fish. Yeah. And another experiment they did was to put 3 rocks on the seabed, and a diver went out when the dolphins were around. He picked up 1 rock, came back to the shore with it, went out for a second, came back, third one came back, and he was given a bit of fish as diver. So the dolphin looked at that and he immediately went out, picked the first one up, went immediately for the second one and the third one, came back with all 3, and got his fish. So he realised that, you know, why am I bothering? Why is this guy bothered to go back and forwards? I just go and pick all 3 of them and get the fish at the same time. That was just 2 tails, but they are phenomenally intelligent. They chatter and talk all the time as well. We went out last summer in a boat involved in wildlife, and we put hydrophones in the water, and the dolphins swam past. We could all hear them all whistling and squeaking to each other as they swam past the boat. All bottlenose dolphins have an individual name. So they call and the dolphins recognise them. We human beings have for years, since the 70s, have tried to work out what the language they speak, how to understand it, but they haven't managed it yet. But it's a very complex language. Are they the friendly, lovely animals you see on Flipper on television? They wouldn't. Well, very few cases of them ever harming a human being, 1 or 2, but they are not. In the marine world, they are also aggressive animals, so they will, which helps in a way that they will jump on top of each other and bite and snap, which means that a lot of their fins get marked. And I'll tell you a little about that in the future in another slide, because that helps us a lot. But they are not as bending. Certainly when people say to me, "Oh, I'd love to swim in the water with bottlenose dolphins," you know, I say, don't be doing that. It might be okay in somewhere like the Caribbean, where they're used to it, but the dolphins here are not used to human beings. And the large animals that weigh half a ton, all they have to do is hit you with their tail or fin and break your arm or do some serious injury if you do that. But in fact, when they do occasionally come in the bay or near people, either in the water or on bodyboards, this sort of thing, the dolphins tend to move away. If people go towards them, the dolphins move away. They're not really interested anyway. But certainly, I always say, apart from it being illegal to swim in the water with dolphins in Britain, it's potentially dangerous because these are wild animals that weigh a lot. So we get 2 different sort of groups here, but we can get combinations. So you get bachelopods, they tend to be a bit more robust and a bit more acrobatic sometimes, or nursery groups. So this morning, 8 o'clock, we had first of all we had a group of adult dolphins went past, including a very famous one I'll tell you about in a moment. And then another group came back, past about 20 minutes later, of 10 animals, including little calves. So they can swim 2 groups fairly close together of a different mix-up, but at the moment, at this time of year, you tend to get a lot of newborn calves, which is always great to see. And I just throw that shot over because that's my favourite shot. Lots of sparkle, but it's perhaps not as descriptive as some, but yeah, I think it's a lovely photograph. And by the way, all these photographs you've seen so far are all taken by me, mainly of Scarborough. So there are 1 or 2 photos in the display which will be not flying, which I've noticed, but these are the vast majority of my photographs. So, and I'll tell a little bit about the range expansion along the Yorkshire coast by these animals. Again, that was photographed off the Marine Drive, that one. So, via Citizen Finns, they are the people based in St Andrews and Aberdeen University who record bottlenose dolphins via the photographic library. They've been following them for many years. So back in the 1980s, they were looking to set up special areas of conservation at the sea off the Moray Firth up near Inverness, and at that time the only place you saw bottlenose dolphins was in that area, the extreme northeast Scotland. And then over the next 40 years, gradually in the 1990s, they were seen more regularly further down the coast of Scotland, going down towards Edinburgh and towards Berwick-on-Tweed, that area. And then as it gradually progressed into the 2010s, then they were seen more off Northumberland, below the Scottish borders and off Tyneside. And then suddenly it's shifted again. And as of 2018, they've been seen regularly off Yorkshire, and their movement is continuing south, the expansion of their territory. They're moving up and down all the time. They don't sort of move so far and stay there, then move on again. They're up and down the coast all the time. But this last winter, there's been considerably more sightings off Spurn Point, north bank of the Humber, than there have been in previous years. So they're continuing their push southwards, and I expect that they will also move down towards Lincolnshire as well in the next few years. So this is a bit of a graph here of the steep incline in bottlenose dolphin sightings in the last 5 years or so. So 2018 and the years before that, 17, 16, we used to get 3 or 4 sightings of bottlenose dolphins a year. I used to count myself really lucky if I saw them once in a year. And then suddenly something happened. And the following year we had 47, again 102, 20, last year 303 sightings off Yorkshire. And sightings means a journey all the way up and down the coast. It doesn't mean they were seen, if they were seen at Filey and then Scarborough, that's not 2 sightings, that's 1 sighting, it's 1 movement up or down the coast. So each one of these is a journey up and down the coast by a group of bottlenose dolphins. And this year to date, we've had 355 sightings. Again, it's a considerable increase on that one. So I expect that by the end of the year, we'll have exceeded 400 sightings of bottlenose dolphins off Yorkshire. Why are they coming? These are why they're coming. This is what life's all about. It's about fish. It's about feed. So I want to say mating as well, but primarily life's about food. So, but what do they eat? Well, they bottlenose dolphins pick off 1 fish at a time. So their favourite food is salmon sea trout, if they can get it. So what they do is, particularly in the summer months, they will hang off the river mouths like the Esk or the Tyne or the Tweed or the Tees, because at that time of year the salmon are running up the east coast of Britain and going into those rivers. So the dolphins just sit off the river mouths, picking off the fish as they go in. This time of the year they're going for anything. So when we were out on the boat on Sunday, we saw 2 fish being taken. One's a smallish fish, one's quite a large pollock or sea trout, big fish. And they have a bad habit of bottlenose dolphins of playing with the food, I always call it. So they get the fish and they'll toss it around before they eat it, throw it in the air. Part of the reason they do that is that they need to swallow it head first. Because if they swallowed it tail first, potentially the tail or the fin might get stuck in the throat. So they juggle it around and then they'll eat it that way. So I've got a bit of a video later I will show you, which I want to get to see it this year. Is the arrival of bottlenose dolphins good news for everybody? No, it isn't. These are the harbour porpoise that used to be our main cetacean. We still see a lot of them. But bottlenose dolphins will kill porpoise. Again, they're not quite as friendly as you maybe think they are, bottlenose dolphins. We don't know exactly why they kill them, but it's probably competition for food. They don't eat them, they'll just ram into them and smash them up and then they'll fling them about, and then that's one thing. These are white-beaked dolphin. They used to be we never used to get a lot, but they were the commonest dolphin you expect to see off Yorkshire. They're a bit smaller than bottlenose dolphins, and they spend a lot of time offshore. But we're seeing less of those now than we did before bottlenose dolphins arrived. So we probably think again they are aware of these big aggressive dolphins in the area and are keeping them further off to sea. We haven't had any porpoise fatalities off Yorkshire that I'm aware of yet, fatalities, but I'm sure it will come because it's happened off Northumberland, and it happens wherever bottlenose dolphin are found, they kill porpoise. Is it a short-term effect, this expansion down the coast? No, it's not, because they're bringing these guys with them. These are the little calves, these light grey ones. So they're coming down this morning. There was several little calves in the group, and the calves, the parents are bringing them to this area, therefore the calves will always think about this as being their territory. They may move down the coast. They were here this morning. If they were here now, they could be off the Tyne, Newcastle this time tomorrow, move up down the coast a lot. But they consider all the coastline, all the way down to below Bridlington now, to be their territory. Is Scarborough a destination or a passing place? It's a passing place, really. I would say that it's a destination for the porpoise. The area off the Marine Drive at Scarborough is probably the best place in Britain to see a porpoise because they come there very regularly and close in. But the bottlenose dolphin pass by. So they're not coming here to feed, they're just touring the water up and down the Yorkshire coast looking for food. This was at Whitby the other year. There's always somebody looking the wrong way, isn't there? All those people looking the right way and these people looking the wrong way. How are they identified? Well, they are identified, as I say, by marks on the fins. So this guy's got a mark on his fin there. Here we've got fins. This is a particularly famous one. She's called Running Paint. She's about 45 years old. She has these white markings. On the other side, it's slightly different. She has like dots. On the other side, I put a white band. She was off Marine Drive this morning, and she was also with the dolphins at Bempton this afternoon. So we knew that was the same group that had been at Scarborough, was at Bempton. Same numbers, 15 to 17, and she was with them. She's the equivalent of probably about somebody in their mid-70s, and yet she swims with the rest of the group, keeps up. She doesn't seem to breach jump as much as some of the others, but she and others are in the 7 or age group, so they're, as I say, nearing the end of their lives really, but at the moment still fit as ever. So if you see dolphins, keep an eye out for that one. Jumps out like what jumps out to me anyway, like a sort of thing. You can just see the white on the fins. So how can you help? If you're a photographer and you're out and about and you get any snaps of fins, then please go online, look for citizen fins, and you can click and upload your photographs, and it enables them to follow the dolphins down the coast. Because, as I say, there is a marine conservation zones of Scotland, but the dolphins are now coming all the way down here. So we are supplying with them with as much evidence as possible that the little dolphins are down here, so we can hopefully in the future get some conservation in place from down here. That's typical dolphin. These scars here are where another dolphin has raked it with his teeth and nibble at the back. But these lines here are all teeth scrapes. And a lot of dolphins, probably half the population of dolphins, have fins that can be recorded and remembered in the library. So please, it's great for boats to enjoy. If you're out in a boat, you can enjoy the presence of these dolphins, but please do so with care. It's very important that when you're interacting with dolphins that you act appropriately so as not to harm them or stress them. As I said, this is a mum and calf here. Again, the fin, you can see, marked fin. So, if you're out in a boat, then we always say, it's all about predictability. So if you see dolphins, Just continue the line you're going. Don't start turning at a right angle or cutting through the group or pod. Don't get too close, don't get to any less than 100 metres or 200 metres if there's cars with them. Keep your speed down. I mean, like the other day we went out in the boat, the skipper of the Queensferry, Neil, is excellent. He just sets the boat down, we tootle along at 5 or 6 knots, and the dolphins come to see us or they don't. So regularly they'll come to us. Jeff is in with us this evening. He's from the RSPCA. He ran Operation Seabird in the last few years, and that has successfully prosecuted somebody who harassed the dolphins. So that has made a big impact through Jeff's work, because it was when the first dolphins started to arrive, everyone was pouring out the harvest to go and look at them and acting inappropriately. But since we've had that successful prosecution, then that's the lessons got through now to local boats, and we haven't had any more issues to date. Why we need to protect them? Well, we need to protect them because they're under pressure all over the planet. We're so lucky in Yorkshire and Scarborough to have numbers increasing rather than decreasing in other areas. So we have to look after them. The British waters are home to over 30 species of dolphins and porpoise and whales. People don't realise that, but we get bottlenose dolphins and white-beaked dolphins here, but there are 5 species of dolphins that are regularly found in the UK, but they tend to be certain ones in certain areas. So it's a dolphin called a common dolphin, which tends to be on the west coast or south coast of Britain. We get bottlenose dolphins and white-beaked dolphins. You get different species. But Britain is one of the richest countries in the world to get of cetacean species because we have a mixture of waters. On the west coast, we've got the Gulf Stream coming up, we've got deep water not far off. On the east coast, we've got the shallow North Sea. Each type of sea suits a different cetacean. So other European countries get cetaceans as well, but usually a lesser variation than we do, because we have that varied sea conditions. And they increased, I mean, if you walk around Scarborough seafront now, around the Marine Drive, you'll regularly see people with binoculars, or people even come here from the Midlands and other areas to look for dolphins. So it really has been a commercial boost for the area, and suitably so. You know, they're just, as I say, fantastic animals. So consequences of inappropriate boat action are that you can injure the animals. They might be stressed. They might move away. So we don't want to injure them, and we don't want them thinking, well, this isn't a great area. We're going to move somewhere else and leave us. So if you're out in a boat, please be careful. Those guidelines I said earlier. Act predictably at a low speed. Don't risk injuring them. So other Yorkshire cetaceans are porpoises and whales. I'm just going to look at 1 and 2. So this is your harbour porpoise. As I say, it's 1.5 to 1.9 metres long, 6 foot long, small rectangular fin. Don't approach boats, that's one thing. Another difference between porpoise and dolphins is dolphins are very inquisitive and will come to boats. Porpoise tend to avoid or ignore them. Minke whales, if any of you are booked on my next talk, the final of the 3 talks I'm doing, we're going to talk about minke whales and the huge increase in sightings of this year over previous years of minke whales off Yorkshire. So they are what we call a baleen whale, which basically means it's a whale that feeds by swallowing loads of water and fish, and then uses its tongue, pushes the water out through what's called baleen, which is material like fingernails hanging down inside its mouth, pushes water out, eats the fish that's inside. So baleen whales are, the smallest is the minke whale, then you've got blue whales and fin whales and other types of species as well, all feed in the same way. Our commonest whale is the minke whale. They're 10 metres long, so big animals, 30 odd feet long, and we've at some points in this last summer I've seen them maybe every day of the week off Scarborough. Some have been usually about a mile out. You know, you need binoculars really on the most cases because they're not as, the dolphins are very inshore. Dolphins will usually be inside of 1,000 metres, often just a couple of hundred metres offshore, but minke whales tend to be further out. They're a sleek, fast animal with a sharply pointed head and a dorsal fin. And they're again dark grey on top with a lighter underbellies. and they have, you have to be fairly close to see it, but they have white patches on the pectoral fins, which you can see in photographs, but hard to see, impossible to see from land really. Typical minke whale with Yorkshire in the background. If you want to see minke whales, a good place to go is just to go to the Whitby in about August or September, sit on the cliff top near the whalebones with a pair of binoculars. On a calm day, you can regularly see minke whales swimming out in the sea there. Less common species, humpback whales. Well, this isn't my photo, it's one of the few that isn't my photo. This is taken by a friend of mine, Paul Smith. I was on the same boat at Whitby with Paul when that happened, but I had it on my camera raise at appropriate moments. And this humpback whale came out of the water and breached and went back into this big splash, and we all stood there waiting, and this humpback whale swam around the boat for about half an hour. Did it jump out of the water again? Did it flip in the egg? No, it didn't. So that's the only photograph of Paul's kindly agreed to me to have it in my productions because it's the only one of that whale. But I've been lucky enough to see humpback whales twice off Whitby over the years. So they come in to feed on the herring, which the minke whales feed on as well, but not in big numbers and not consistently. Fin whales, we also get fin whales. We've had more than one fin whale seen off Flamborough Head this year. They are massive animals, second smallest blue whales, so second biggest animal on the planet. Sadly, one died breached in Bridlington Bay, died earlier this year. With an animal like that, if it beaches, there's very little you can do, because you can't. With a dolphin or a porpoise, you've got a chance of lifting it and putting it back in the water. But when you've got a 90-foot whale, there's nothing you can do. And once they're beached, then they turn the whole weight of the animal and crushes them internal organs when the time goes out. And that's it. Cetaceans, if they are ill, that as a last resort, they will come and beach on shore. The reason they do that is to breathe. If they are so ill they can't rise to the surface, then they know they're going to drown. So what's the alternative? You go into shore, onto the beach, but some people usually die anyway. But that's why they do it. That's why cetaceans beach, because they're ill and think they're going, and that's the only alternative for them. White-beaked dolphin. I was saying that white-beaked dolphin are more commonest dolphin. I've only seen them once this year. We had them once, one evening off Marine Drive. Great little dolphins. But as I say, less common now because the big bully boys, the bottlenose dolphins, are around a lot. Common dolphin. This is generally speaking, this is a West Coast dolphin. If you'd asked me a couple of years ago, do you ever see common dolphins? I'd have said, well, there's no record since the mid-70s. But in the last 2 years, we've seen common dolphins both years. They're much smaller. They're usually in warmer waters. So it might be indicative of the fact we're getting global warming, and the North Sea has been 5 degrees warmer than usual this year, that these guys are coming into our area. Not a lot of them at the moment. There's been 2 sightings this year, 1 last year, so it could be just a flash in the pan, but Sea-Watch do record the fact that we are getting more common dolphins in the North Sea, more sightings, and the white-beaked dolphin I was talking about before, they're a cold water species. They're moving further north and we're getting less sightings in our area. So the waters are warming and the species we're getting are changing. We've had some weird sightings this year. We do surveys off stays for Yorkshire Wildlife Trust, and one trip this year we had flying fish fly past the boat. That's the first record I'm aware of trying to get flying fish. It came out and flew about 30 metres and went back in again. It's something you regularly see in the Mediterranean, but you don't see it off the Yorkshire waters. But maybe that's a sign, again, of things warming up. Pilot whales, again, it's a species you don't normally see here. They're actually normally further north than we are. About 10 weeks ago, on I think it was a Thursday, suddenly 30 pilot whales turned up at Bridlington Bay. There was a lot of concern at the time that they might beach, because they're a very family-oriented animal, and if one's ill, the others will follow that, and sometimes a whole group or pod will beach. Jeff and I were scouring the cliffs that night, weren't we?
Yeah.
No sign. So, and they weren't seen again. They were there one afternoon, 30 pilot wells in Billington Bay, and never seen again. So the good news is that they presumably survived. They didn't wash up anywhere else. But it just shows that things can just suddenly turn up. Even this guy, there was a sighting of an orca off Bempton about 3 weeks ago, admittedly 2.5 to 3 miles out, but the people who saw it seemed to know what they were looking at, so it probably was, but without a photograph, and this is a stock photograph, this one clearly wasn't taken from 2.5 miles away, we don't know, but again, that could be just a flash in the pan. It was the first sighting of an orca off Yorkshire since 2007, but they do quite regularly appear off the Farne Islands further north, off Newcastle, each early summer, so we could get them again. But you never know what's going to turn up. You get your common species and suddenly, bang, whoa, what's this? Yeah. So where to look for? Where to look for cetaceans? Well, my favourite place is on the Marine Drive. And my wife will tell you I spend more time there than I should do. So looking for porpoise, because the ideal thing about the Marine Drive is that you can park, there's a footpath, and you look over there. The tide never goes out beyond the base of the seawall, and you have a porpoise all year round and dolphins passing by. So I recommend that as the best place to go. But any headland, Filey Brig, Flamborough Head, they're good. Because as I say, particularly with the dolphins, they tend to swim past one headland to the next in a straight line. So that's a good place to look. But Whitby and Stays, they're great for minke whales in the summer. They had some counts of minke whales of Stays. Last year, one guy with a telescope had over 70 whales in sight at one time, one day in September last year. As I say, you can park on the Marine Drive. The best place to go is opposite lamppost 54. If you walk around, all the lampposts are numbered, and 54 is where to stand opposite there on the footpath, obviously not the road, which is a busy road, so be careful if you do pass the road, but they're all stenciled on the numbers. So I always say, go to lamppost 54 if you want to see dolphins or porpoise. It's never guaranteed, of course, they're there if you want to be there, but that's a good place. So we've just got a few videos now. I'll show you a few. Yeah.